Hi, this is Dr. Pramila Kudwa welcoming you to the podcast, A Story for Your Query. If you like it, subscribe to it. Today, we are dealing with a slightly different topic. Let's look at the school as an ecosystem. An ecosystem is defined as a community of living organisms and non living components in that environment. There are primary, secondary, and maybe tertiary consumers and producers. This is a continuous cycle. An ecological system theory by Yuri Bronfenbrenner states that the human development is influenced by different types of environmental systems. According to this theory, there are 5 layers which help in honing the personality of the student who is at the core. The student forms the primary producer of the ecosystem, and the families, communities, culture, colleagues, and professionals, including the social and cultural values, contribute to the system. Let's view this theory in terms of COVID and its effects. School is a sustainable ecosystem where all stakeholders work together. As of mid April 2020, 191 countries had shut down all their primary and secondary schools, affecting almost 1.6 billion children. Some systems were able to train the teachers, roll out online learning, and put in place the student support services quickly. Others struggled, constrained by the lack of access to technology or expertise. It took almost 2 years for the children to move from a virtual learning to a physical environment of learning. Second, safe ecosystem, wherein there is racial and ethical identity, gender equality, and safety for those who are facing the trauma or simply diversity of learners. Third, it is an enterprise learning ecosystem. Which means it is the totality of the systems that encourage diverse teaching strategies, training, and professional development, enable multiple opportunities for learning, put the student in control, optimize peer learning, and focus on feedback. To my mind, the school is a regenerative school ecosystem. Let's look at this point of view from the corona perspective. Bijal goes to school, and her school sends worksheets, videos, and such online material daily for learning. Using one smartphone between the family members, the parents are trying to help her cope with the studies. Father has just lost his job. Mother is a housewife. They are more worried about their future than COVID-19. In such a situation, the child is bound to feel insecure and helpless. In addition, every day the children were exposed to the news of how many world over have been affected, how many have died, and so on. There is no cure for COVID-19 is another stressor. Fear of the future and helplessness are 2 major factors that the schools had to deal with. Active involvement of the school counselors as a support system was absolutely necessary. Some other areas where support was needed, they are schools conducted online classes both synchronous and asynchronous. The learning climate at home is not quite the same as that of a classroom. In Mumbai, the flats are not large enough to give adequate private space to everyone. There may not be adequate devices, one for each. So there are siblings and slots of online teaching coincide. There is a problem. It is possible that Wi-Fi connection is not stable, and the synchronous learning and that had to happen has not percolated down to the student as it ought to have. Consequent to this, the implications are there could be an achievement lag. The learning environment at home is different from that of the school. The lockdown extended over long period, leading to a brain loss. Research has found that when vacations stretch for a long period of time, brain loss is felt in the areas of math and language skills, particularly in the lower SES. Support is needed by the teachers. Lockdown was announced suddenly. Some of them were at home without the textbook or the reference material. Few of them did not have computers at home to produce the content for online classes. There was no domestic help at home. They may have young kids, and to top it all, they have to learn a new technique of delivery online. Most schools supported their teachers. The COVID pandemic will end. Schools have started, but will the world come back to normal? A few things will have changed permanently. McKinsey and Company talks about 5 R's about getting back to school. First, resolve. Students, teachers, staff, and the community need to follow the norms of recovery and resolve. Resilience. Schools need to set up support system to teach vulnerable students and staff. Third, return. It's about reopening schools and ensuring remediation for lost learning. Reimagine. Leaders think of what the next normal could be like, how education systems could reinvent themselves. School leaders should ensure professional development of their teachers on blended learning and providing socio-emotional and cognitive support to students. Teachers have been working hard developing new techniques of teaching. Don't let them get burnt out. Reform. Decide on the priorities which are based on the needs of the individual schools. Academic performance versus non-academic is to be studied and prioritized. How to convert classroom into a regenerative ecosystem? A few guidelines. While teachers communicate a great deal through their actions, we also communicate a great deal through our inactions. So establish ground rules. Make the students introspect and reflect on their misbehavior. We are not here to label the behavior as good or bad. We are here to show them the right behavior. Teachers should encourage students to be more collaborative. Only then will they be involved and become producers of the ecosystem. All this cannot be done by the teachers or the management. All the stakeholders need to work together to achieve this. Finally, a quote from Hillary Clinton. It takes a village to raise a child. This brings to mind a story from Mahabharata where Krishna preaches the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Arjuna follows the Dharma as a warrior, having understood the meaning of life from Krishna from the rendition of Bhagavad Gita. Yuval Noah Harari mentions in his book 21 Lessons for the 21st Century how the story of Bhagavad Gita rendition was linked to Lion King by Walt Disney Productions. Here it goes. The Disney epic Lion King repackaged the incident of the story for modern audience. The Lion King Simba represented Arjuna, where Simba wants to know the meaning of existence. His father Mufasa tells him about the great circle of life. Mufasa explains that antelope eat grass. The lions eat the antelope, and when the lions die, the body decomposes and feeds the grass. This is how life continues from generation to generation, provided each animal plays its part. Everything is connected and everyone depends on everyone else. So, if a blade of grass fails to fulfill its vocation, the entire circle of life might get disturbed. Simba's vocation says to rule the kingdom after Mufasa's death and keep the other animals in order. However, Mufasa is murdered by his evil brother Scar. Young Simba blames himself for the catastrophe and leaves the Lion Kingdom. He shuns his royal destiny and goes into wilderness. Then he meets two other outcasts, a meerkat and a warthog. Together they spend a few carefree years. Their antisocial philosophy means that they answer every problem by chanting Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. But Simba cannot escape his dharma. As he matures, he becomes increasingly troubled, not knowing who he is and what he should do in life. At the climactic moment of the movie, the spirit of Mufasa reveals to Simba in a vision and reminds Simba of the circle of life and his royal identity. Simba also learns that in his absence, the evil Scar has assumed the throne and mismanaged the kingdom, which now suffers greatly from disharmony. Simba understands finally who he is and what he should do. He returns to the kingdom, kills his uncle, becomes a king, and re-establishes harmony and prosperity. The circle of life presents the cosmic drama as a circular story for all Simba and Arjun. Lions eat antelope, and warriors fought battles for countless aeons and will continue to do so forever and ever. The internal repetition gives power to the story, and that if Arjun options come back, or if Simba refuses to become the king, they will be rebelling against the very law of nature. This brings us to the end of the podcast. Subscribe to it, send in your queries. Aren't you curious to know how relevant this is to each one of us in daily life? My email is yourquerymystory@gmail.com. I shall meet you again in a fortnight. Take care and bye till then.